Hi and welcome. I'm Ilana King and I am an entrance exam specialist, and I'm here to talk to you today about reading lists. You might think, reading lists, what's that got to do with anything? Well, we always are encouraging children to read, and specifically when we're looking at entry into private schools, they often have recommended reading lists, and even if they don't, we can generally find some recommended reading lists. Children should be reading widely before they go and sit the exams. But I want to talk to you a little bit about these lists, because often what we do as tutors is we just hand this list to the children, and we sort of, or to the parents, we sort of say, they should be reading from this list, but we don't do much beyond that. And I think this is wrong. I think that we have a role in helping the children to really think about what they're reading. So I'm going to focus today on 7+, as that's my area of specialty. And you can find 7+ reading lists out there on the internet if you have a look. I'm going to show you one in particular. This is from my own book that I wrote for parents who are preparing their children for entrance exams. It's good for tutors as well, but it was specifically written as a handbook for parents. And inside I have a recommended reading list for 7+, and I'm sure you can see some of the classics on there that you would expect to see. So we've got quite a long list here. Well, the first thing I would say is never hand over a list that you don't actually know the books. These lists are very generic. If I look at this list I have in here, we've got some very, very simple books in here, right the way to some very challenging books. So you really need to actually understand the books. Now, do you have to read them all? Well, for me, it's a pleasure to do so, and I love to read these books, so I've read them all. I'm not suggesting you go out there and read them all, but do a little bit of research. So you should definitely know these books and get a good sense of what they're about and what age they're recommended for before you recommend them to families. But then once you've done that, it's really, it's not enough to just say, go and read these. I like to bring these books back into my tuition sessions. I like to make sure that we actually talk about the books together, myself and the children. So find out whichever one it is that they're reading at that time. You can get them to bring it to the session, or if you've got a copy of it, you can bring it as well, and just talk about it. So talk about the characters in it. Who's their favorite character? What is it about that character that they really liked? If they're not yet finished the book, you can do a little bit of prediction with them. What do they think is going to happen next after the bit that they've currently read? You can do comparisons to other books they've read, maybe some things that they notice that are the same from one book to another. Sometimes they don't like the book, and that's okay. It's a valid opinion not to like a book. And if you think about all the books you've read over time, there'll be books that you don't like, and that's fair enough. I would encourage them to finish reading it, but you can then talk to them, and what are their reasons why they don't like it? What is it about it? And these are really interesting things to reflect on, to get them to think about. How does this fit into the exam? Well, if they make it to interview stage, they often are asked about the books that they've read. So this is a good preparation for that. But it's not just about that. It's about helping to develop those critical thinking skills that they're going to use when they look at passages through the books that they're actually reading. It also gives them a bit of a purpose for reading these books. We sort of say, go off and read these books, but why? If they're not going to discuss them with anybody, what's the point? So it's really important, I think, that we give some validity to their thoughts and their feelings about the books by letting them express that to us. I often get asked by parents, should they have read all the books on the list? No, not at all. This is a list to give them a selection to look through. Perhaps they really like books about animals. Great, direct them towards those. Perhaps they really like books about magic. Great, direct them towards those. The idea is just to have a selection that they can choose from. Now, some parents will say they're going to read them all. That's great. Remember, they can also access the books in different ways. They can listen to the audiobooks version. The parents can read the books to the children if that's the right fit for that family. So the children don't have to read all of the books themselves. The more widely they read, the better. But it's not a definitive list. It's not like, to enter the school, you must have read all of these books. If you haven't read a couple of these, I would always suggest, maybe as a tutor, pick one or two that you like the look of, read them, right, yourself. It doesn't take very long for these children's books, so that you can actually talk about those books more in depth. So pick a couple that you really like, be able to talk with the child about those ones in detail because you've read them yourselves, but have some more generic questions available for the ones that you haven't read that you can spark discussion. So you don't have to have read the book to be able to do that. Questions about favorite characters, you may not know, you can do a quick look and a synopsis of who the characters are. But my big takeaway point from this is don't just hand over these lists, actually use them in your sessions. Thank you for joining me. If you want more tips on teaching for the 7+ entrance exams, then you can follow my YouTube channel, or you can go to my website, www.educationpathfinder.co.uk. Thank you.